Tune in at 9 to noon every Tuesday as PA broadcasts live from TCO to talk all things purple. TCO Tuesdays are powered by Sukup Manufacturing.
Tennessee, what do you like better, TCO Tuesdays or the Friday football feast? Can you make a call on that? Is there one that you like better than the other?
I don't really have a preference other than I like when PA says Friday football and then the crowd goes feast.
I think I like.
So that would be the tiebreaker for me.
I think I like the Friday football feast too because we're that much closer to Vikings football. You know, Tuesdays is still a long way away, but when we get to, I mean, I've been waiting all day for Sunday night, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Oh, now I know what he means. Some people think that they have more power than they do. He sent me a text message that said, it was Mike, and he says, wow, I really struck a nerve, LOL, Mike, SLP. And then I went, huh? And he goes, I gave you the business about hopping on the bandwagon last Friday. You're not the first. I get accused of that all the time. There was no nerve. Matter of fact, he's created new material for me, Mike. I thank you for that. You didn't strike a nerve. You struck gold for me. It'll prolong my comedy career. Because here's what I'm saying. Remember I did the bit where I talked about how I compare it to, like, I'm not going to be with the team through thick and thin. Then I compare it to a restaurant, right? I do that bit where I say, it's like if a new restaurant comes to your hometown, your neighborhood, and you go there and you eat once and you go, food really wasn't that good. I don't know, but I'll give it another try. You know, so you wait a couple weeks, you go back, and now the service isn't very good. Then you go, well, third time's a charm. I'll try one more time, and you go a third time. And not only is the food not good, but neither is the service. And you say, well, that's it. Are you going to keep going back to that restaurant over and over because that's your hometown restaurant? No, same with the hometown teams. Then I'm going to add to it, tend to be at the comedy show. I'm going to say, or like, let's say there's a couple of talk show hosts masquerading as stand-up comics, and you go see their show one time, and you go, well, that really wasn't very funny. And then you see a few months later, they're on the bill again somewhere, and you go, I'll give them another chance. And you go again, and you go, well, it's the same old tired routine. Why would I keep going back to that? Pretty funny, right? I'm going to add that to Flop, Sweat, and Tears. This coming Friday, 2 shows up at Rockwoods. We're going to give away a pair of tickets to the After Dark show. First show's a dinner show. RockWoodsMN.com if you'd like to buy tickets. And then we'll give away tickets to the night show. Doors will open at 8:30. And then the first laugh is scheduled for 9:35. Maybe about 10 o'clock we'll get you laughing, but the show will start at 9:30. We talked a little bit about the Timberwolves, Tennessee. Headline, Timberwolves stumble at home, fall 95-94 to Jimmy Butler-less Miami Heat. Now, in the past, when Buckets has missed Wolves games, he says, well, that's a skip game, which is the ultimate in disrespect, right? I think he was legitimately hurt here. I don't think you consider the Wolves a skip game anymore, right? They went to the Western Conference Finals last year, albeit they were the victims of a gentleman's sweep. They lost 5-1. But even without Bodega Cat on the roster anymore, it seems like the Julius Randle guy he's done a nice job so far. It seems like when I check the box, he can put the biscuit in the basket, and he can play a little bit of defense, and he can pass the ball. So he seems to be fine. And DiVincenzo is a pretty good player as well. But
I'd still like to know what happened on that final play last night on the final possession, because it sounded like Julius Randle was supposed to be throwing the ball in, and he wasn't. So all of a sudden, our best players.
Well, here's what happened.
Yeah.
Coach Chris Finch usually takes around 10 minutes, give or take, before addressing the media. Hurried into the team's news conference room before most reporters could get there. Once he did, Finch offered more than one mea culpa for a string of decisions he made that contributed to the Wolves' loss, specifically on the last 2 possessions of the game. Finch said, I didn't get it right. Tonight, coming down the stretch, I didn't get it right. I told you guys that we weren't always going to get it right, but yeah, if I had to go back and do it over, I'd certainly do it differently. This is where we brought this up in the first hour, where Ant declined to speak with reporters. I'm reading Fish Rap Factory West Side, Chris Hines' piece. Ant declined to speak with reporters after the media requested he do so, but before he left, he complained loud enough for reporters to hear in the locker room about the Heat's shape-shifting zone defense. And then I asked you about a basketball buddy of mine who I text and talk with more people know. I said, well, what is a shape-shifting zone defense? He said, well, it refers to is it Moana movie in which they do shape-shifting. And he says, he listens to the show frequently, and how Ant lives rent-free in my head. He thinks Spo might live rent-free in Ant's head because he's come up and, allegedly Spo is a defensive mastermind, and he came up with a way last night to, some guys, this would be a career night, 8 for 24, but not for Ant. 8 for 24, 22 points. It also included 6 turnovers, and the Wolves committed 20 turnovers overall. It says the game unraveled for the Wolves in the final 9 seconds. McDaniels had a flying putback of a Conley miss to give the Wolves a 2-point lead. Miami successfully challenged a foul that was called on Haywood Highsmith on the bucket. It would have been an and one. They challenged, no foul was called. Then it says the trouble for the Wolves began with a late substitution before the Heat inbounded. Finch subbed out Rudy Gobert in a defensive-friendly lineup and subbed back in Conley, who only guarded the inbounder on the play. Here's what Gobert said. You see Gobert's quote? I'm pretty good on that end of the floor, and I live for those moments. It's what I do best. I was frustrated for sure, but decisions. Coach made decisions, and we're living with that. So it sounds like he's basically throwing the coach under the bus for, why are you taking me out of the game in a defensive situation? And I think that's exactly what the coach is referring to about decisions he made that he shouldn't. The other one would be, as you say, Ant's the guy throwing in the inbounds pass when the Wolves had their last opportunity to try to tie the game. It says, where does it say, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, with 7.8 seconds left, the Wolves had the ball back with a chance to win. And then it says they appeared confused over who would inbound the ball, and ended up being Edwards, who seemingly took himself out of the play with so little time left. Finch said they were trying to set a flare screen setup for Edwards. He said, this is Finch, I wanted to run one thing, and then I wanted to flip it back, but yeah, that's on me. End of the game, I got to be clearer about what we're trying to do on both sides of the ball and get us some help there. And then it goes on to say, new players, mixing, matching, meshing, maybe not going exactly how they wanted to, but those are a couple of blunders that you wouldn't think at this stage. Gobert on defensively should be in the game, right? I would think. Yeah. And Gobert, I like that Gobert kind of speaks his mind, though it does sound like he's directly, coach made a decision. I like being in those moments, but what are you going to do? And I guess he's just responding honestly. You would think he's a fraud if he said, well, no, that was a good call on the coach's part. That was a different situation. It's like Gobert's got to be in there in the game at that point. And then how Ant ends up inbounding the ball remains to be seen.
Yeah, especially when there's 3.5 seconds.
Yeah, right.
It's one thing if it's 12 and you're throwing it in and then they get the ball back to you. At 3.5, that makes that very challenging.
Well, and sometimes I remember...
even if you're not going to go to him, you at least want him to be a decoy out on the floor.
Well,
make the defense have to think about him. They didn't have to think about him.
Well, I remember in a critical high school basketball game that my boy was involved with a number of years ago, they changed the inbounds guy just because the normal inbounds guy was being covered by one of the best players in the state. And they were concerned because he's so good defensively that on that inbounds pass, anything could happen. So they switched. The person that inbounded the ball that doesn't normally inbound didn't go quite as well. There was a turnover. And so sometimes you almost outthink yourself a little bit sometimes too, right? So it's like, why Ant was on the inbounds, I don't know. I did not see the game. I was locked in. Put it this way, Teddy, I was waiting all day for Sunday night. Did you watch any Kitties versus Texans? Did you watch the game? See bits of it?
I really did not because we had hockey going on, and then by the time I had Wild game DVR'd, so I opted for Wild Blackhawks over. And by the time I went to tune into the Wild game, the Lions were already down 23-7. So the one play I did see, because I hadn't started the Wild game yet, was the first play of the third quarter, where Dan Campbell is talking about needing to get a turnover, and then they force a turnover right away. And And at that moment, I saw Goff then throw one of his 5 interceptions immediately after that. I thought, well, they're done, right? Like, that was your chance to change the momentum of the game. You get the interception to start the second half, down 16, and then you immediately turn it over in Houston's territory. So I thought they were donezo, but they came back, and I didn't watch the rest of it.
My first tweet last night was, Goff has morphed into Sam Darnold. SOL, meaning same old Lions, terrible team, terrible city, terrible fans, in a terrible stadium, and ... Then the Lions scored, and I tweeted, Deuce is a 6-year-old. What do you think of the Lions now? And then 10B was shortly thereafter, I tweeted, this Lions organization is a mess. They need to tear it down to the studs and start over. Sad, really. So a little bit of an overreaction on my part.
What do you think of the Lions now?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, it was an I'll admit, 10B, I overreacted to a bad first half in which the Lions were completely outplayed and outcoached. But that was a pretty remarkable comeback to be down 23-7 and then scored just enough points to win. And they needed to shut the opposition out in the second half in order to do so. And their kicker that they just discovered, the Bates guy, kicked 58 and 52. And I don't know if you saw the highlights.
I did. Bailey got in.
Well, I think somebody, I think maybe it was Collinsworth or play-by-play guy who said, they put any more paint on those uprights, that thing ain't going through. And it was Genius. True. Yeah, it was really good. Tenneby's got a keyword, I think.
The Fan and 2 men in a junk truck want to give you a shot to put $1,000 in your hand with our national cash contest. Enter the keyword dollar at KFAN.com now for your shot at winning. The keyword is dollar. Enter now at KFAN.com. Join the KFAN Power Trip Morning Show live on Black Friday from 7 to 9 a.m. at the Huntington Bank Rotunda at Mall of America. They'll be playing the Initials game live for multiple grand prizes, including a trip and ticket bundle to see your favorite teams on the road, plus the ultimate Minnesota Sports Day on Black Friday. Get the full details now, KFAN.com. Keyword calendar.
Couple 13-14 pass, Common Man program. Several ways to contact us. You can call us the old-fashioned way, 1-800-320-5326. Don't bother. We never answer the phone. Booth at KFAN.com is our... We'll answer it when we give away tickets a little bit later, but otherwise we don't answer it. Booth at KFAN.com is our email address. There's the KFAN Talkback. If you have the iHeartRadio app, find KFAN. Microphone icon in the corner of the screen. Tap it 30 seconds or less to deliver some message. Then there's the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686, which is located in the 651 Carpets Plus Studios, home of the next day install. Someone else who apparently thinks he can get me going. I'd take Darnold over Goff any day. My response to him was, that's why you're not an NFL personnel guy. Tucci, as we like to say.
Well, I will say, did you see the Kirk Cousins throw it short of the sticks on the last play of the game?
Yeah.
So, I saw the video of it on social media, and I just posted, I think I've seen this film before, right?
Okay.
And then you get like these arguments in your mentions of Cousins versus Darnold as if I was saying,
right,
Sam, in no way, shape, or form did I say Sam Darnold was a better quarterback than Kirk Cousins.
Correct.
I was not making that comparison. But I think what the Cousins Bubos also need to understand, because a couple of them were in my mentions doing, if Cousins plays for the Vikings this year, they win by 30. And I would also say, well, if Cousins is playing for the Vikings, I don't know if they have Blake Cashman on their team, and I don't know if they have Van Ginkel on their team. I don't know if they have Gernard on their team. I don't know if they have those corners on the team, right? It wouldn't be the same defense. So to assume they'd win by 30 with Kirk Cousins, I'm not just going to make that assumption.
There are many people out there that aren't deep thinkers. They're just surface. And so they just go, well, but as you did, you think a little deeper and said, well, the money we saved, we're paying $10 million a year now for a quarterback, and you're getting a $10 million performance.
Yeah.
That's what you're getting.
But I think everyone logically would say Kirk Cousins is better than Sam Darnold, but you could say, I'd rather have Sam Darnold for his salary than Kirk Cousins for his salary.
Goff called it a mental battle to keep fighting in the face of mistakes and said that, quote, every team gets punched in the mouth and the good ones respond, and they do. That's exactly what they do. And that's That's what if you are a Lions fan or just an NFL observer, you have to look at what happened last night with Detroit and go, that's a sign of a pretty good team, pretty resilient. They were donezo. They were down 23-7 to a good, not a great Texans team, but they've lost 3 of their last 4, but they're still a talented club. And now they were missing some key player. The Nico Collins guy was out.
Yeah, I thought he was going to be back, but no, yeah.
And then Diggs was not there.
Diggs is out for the year.
To come back against any team like that is
on the road.
On the road. Well, the Lions have won 5 road games now in a row. Teams that win on the road, win outdoors, win in all types of different situations. Are generally really good teams. That's why Kansas City's so good. They were done. They were about to lose on a field goal, and they block the game-winning field goal at the buzzer, game-winning field goal attempt at the buzzer. That's what championship teams do. They find a way to do it. How often do what percentage of field goals in the NFL are blocked a season? It can't be more than a handful, is it? It just doesn't happen very often. And to do it with the game, this wasn't like first quarter going into halftime. This was it. They were about to be handed their first loss of the season, and they blocked the kick. That is, I think I saw a note that says this is the 7th time that the Chiefs have been trailing in the fourth quarter, including the playoffs, and come back to win. That's another. Generally, I don't have any statistics to back this up. This is just an assumption of mine, and maybe it's wrong to assume this. Once teams get up in the fourth quarter, it's hard to overtake them, and the Chiefs find a way to do it all the time. And I think it's mostly because of Mahomes. I don't think anybody would argue that. It's got some other nice pieces around him, and Andy Reid's obviously, if you want to use the word genius with idolize and pedestalize, you would. But that's just another astonishing victory for the Chiefs because, Tennessee, we've talked about this. 2 years ago when they won back-to-back big games now. And even prior to that, has Mahomes won 3 now?
Yes.
And their team has been, I don't have their records in front of me, regular season, but they were always pretty gaudy records. Last year, they were 11-6, and they looked ordinary much of the season. And they've even this season.
Their offense has been just as ordinary.
It's just there's not.
Their defense is good.
But they find a way, come fourth quarter, bring it to the ticket, come fourth quarter.
Situational football.
Yeah, bring it to Pat Mahomes. And he finds a way to win. The New York Football Jets and Aaron Rodgers got absolutely destroyed by the Cardinals yesterday.
You know the laugh you make at Deuce and spread swing every single time we talk about his... Yeah, do that every time you mention Aaron Rodgers' name. Could you just do that?
Aaron Rodgers, quote, "We were just really bad." Pro Football Focus story, Josh Elper. Sunday's 31-6 loss to the Cards had an unexpected effect on Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers. Rodgers is usually more than willing to share his thoughts on football and everything else, but his press conference on Sunday was not filled with long answers. Rodgers said he didn't know why the team was so flat after having a long break heading into the game in Arizona, and that, quote, "We were just really bad," in a loss that dropped him to 3-7. Then it says Rodgers said via a transcript from the team.
What?
A transcript from the team. There's been a lot of emotions this year for sure. I thought after a big win on Thursday night and a nice long week, we were going to come out with a lot of energy and win the game. We didn't come out with great energy on either side of the ball. And offensively, you're not going to beat anybody scoring 6 points. Rodgers was asked about those emotions in another question and said, "It's not the time or place to get into that right now. He promised to give a better answer at some point." That some point is when he's paid handsomely by Pat McAfee.
Tomorrow.
See, that's... And I'd like to know what his other news conferences have been like. Are they very short and curt? Because to me, that's almost a, and again, I don't know if that, is there almost a conflict of interest? In other words, you're paid by the league. The fans want to hear what you say. The league has certain parameters that, certain players are required to meet with the media. The coach, we talk about all the time. Coach has to do it after the game. I think it's Riccardi does it a couple of times during the week. And players, you heard the story when they talked about Ant in the NBA. Hein wrote that when players are requested to meet with the media, they're supposed to do it. They can occasionally turn it down, but if it becomes a regular thing, fines and suspensions, I think, are in the offing, or at least fines are. And I'm wondering if it's like, So the media and the fans are really kind of, it's kind of a disservice, right? If you care about those kinds of things. Well, I want to hear what the quarterback had to say, what went wrong, and he saves it for a paid appearance on a show that not everybody watches. Not everybody watches news conferences either, but you get my drift. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder if there are any rules or regulations in regarding to that, because...
Well, we might be a couple months away from no one caring about his appearances on that show now.
That's exactly
he's
right.
Done. He's donezo.
That team is donezo.
He's not even the best quarterback on his team.
I think that is for sure. I mean, he is he just doesn't seem to have much spring in his step anymore. And, look, as much as I'm just not a big fan. I mean, but there was a time when he was as good as anybody in the league. I mean, he's a 4-time MVP. Some of those touchdown stats, I think, have been padded over the years by throwing 1-yard touchdowns when you could hand off instead, but that's okay, too. Guys got to do what they got to do. He's always been a finger pointer. He's never really taken any responsibilities. He'll do the cursory every once in a while. Yeah, I didn't play very well either, but it's always, for him, there's always a larger issue around him. That is the problem, whether it's performance by other offensive players, the defense, the coach, whatever the case may be, but best of luck to him. I promised to talk... I want to talk Wild Tenemy. It's my new favorite team now. There's a couple of notes I saw that I want to ask you about. So we'll do that next.
Bandwagon, huh?
Yeah, it's good. I'm bandwagon. Yeah. Trust me, and I'm proud of it. And nobody knows how to get off the bandwagon as quickly as I do. We still have to do that video for social sometime about the tuck and roll off the bandwagon in an effort to get off before it crashes and burns. It can be, you can acquire some bumps and bruises, but nothing that a little dirt and a little Robitussin won't take care of. We'll break and come back. One last segment to go. Common Man program on the Fan.
Hey, Rubes, this football season, Bell Bank is giving one KFAN listener each week $1,000 to pay it forward to a charity of their choice. Just head over to KFAN.com, keyword contest to learn more and enter today. That's KFAN.com, keyword contest.
See, this AI-generated song sounds a lot like the beginning of the Cars Candy-O. When you play these, can you sometimes go, God, I've heard this song or something similar to it before? No, not yes. The Cars.
Yes.
No. Yes is a progressive rock band. I'm talking about
I'm not talking about a progressive rock band.
Yes.
Who?
No, not the Who. Yes, you're talking about it. Anyway, that's all right. The kids are all right.
We haven't done one of those in a long time.
No, we haven't. And most of the listeners are probably grateful for not doing that. Flop, Sweat, and Tears rolls on. Rockwood's Comedy Club in Otsego this Friday. 2 shows, a dinner show early, and then a after dark show is second. Don't miss out on a night of hilarious comedy, Common Man and Meat Sauce. Tickets start at $26, but you can get yours at rockwoodsmn.com or be the 11th caller, and giving away a pair of tickets to the after dark show. Doors at 8:30. Show starts at 9:30 at Rockwood's Comedy Club in Otsego. 1-800-320-5326. 11th caller at 1-800-320-5326. 11th caller will win those tickets to see the comedy show this upcoming Friday night. It will be our last for a while, too. Sauce is going into paternity leave. He doesn't want to do... We might try to schedule something between now and the middle of December, but once the middle of December comes, Meat Sauce is going to bow out for a while until mid-February. Good for him. As Teneby fields phone calls and tries to give away a pair of tickets, someone we haven't heard from in quite some time, it's Warren from St. Paul. Warren, what's up?
Well, I think what I noticed just over the halfway point of the season, I see what I don't see in almost any team this year. Baltimore's probably the only one right now. Nobody's playing with any consistency. And if you take a look at last few weeks, even with Detroit, quarterback hasn't been playing well at all. Here's the thing I don't know if you brought up.
Wait a second. He had 5 interceptions last night. Before the previous 5 games, Nobody had played 5 games in a row with a quarterback rating of 140 or better. They had scored more touchdowns and incompletions. What do you mean their quarterback hadn't been playing at a high level? He was playing as good as any quarter. He was playing as good as any quarter for that stretch in the history of the National Football League. You're losing credibility.
Well, do you remember what he did against Tennessee? I think he had 80 yards passing.
He didn't need any more than that. They didn't need. They're more of a running team. He didn't need any. Did you see what the final score Tennessee was?
Well, I understand that part of it.
52-10. Well,
right. But if you look at last night, something that hadn't been done, I don't ever think it ever been done. A team that threw 5 interceptions ever won a football game.
Correct. And they
you know what I mean?
That's what championship teams do.
Well, this is what's going to happen. Okay, injuries will start occurring they're happening with all these teams. But what I'm noticing more this year than I've ever seen is streaky teams winning games in a streak. And the only team that I can see, take a look at how many teams. Look at what happened so far with the Vikings, Texans, and all that. Then they start losing games. And what you're going to see eventually, even with Detroit, because you got to admit, they've had some luck with a few of their games. A team like Kansas City will come out in the end. And then it's one of the only teams that you can say, because of their past experience and what they're doing.
Do you think Detroit will win? They're going to be one of the toughest teams. Do you think Detroit will win another game this season, Warren?
Well, no, I say they will win games, but I'm saying when it comes to the end of the season, they don't have that experience. Last year was their first time. I have a feeling that one of these teams that didn't start off slow will probably do better. And there's a couple of indicators for the Vikings. One is the thing that's really helping them is the interceptions that they're creating.
That'll help.
Defense has not been consistent against good teams with good defensive lines. That will get them in the end. And you can't say things are happening that are starting. People would say what happened. Darisaw didn't make it through a season. Injuries occurred with him.
Okay.
Offensive line is not able to stay consistently good to cause the running game to run out games.
Right.
And the quarterback is starting to show his true feathers, where if you look at his last 3 or 4 games, especially late in games, look at his rating towards the end of the games. He hasn't been able to throw touchdowns, and he's throwing a lot of interceptions.
Do you think the Lions should tear it down to the studs right now and just start over? Oh, okay.
No, but I'm saying they're having the Chicago Bears syndrome this year, where they would get turnovers, they would get lucky breaks and stuff like that. Remember when Chicago kept getting interceptions? That's what's kept the.
I'm not paying as close attention to those Bears football as I once did.
So if you take a look at Detroit, the reason they're winning a lot of these games, and even the Tennessee game, kick returns, turnovers, and getting put in positions. They seem to be getting these turnovers at an important. Happened with the Vikings to make the game, so the other teams getting on a roll. And if you take a look at any of these other teams, tell me a team that's been constant all year. The quarterback play hasn't been good for a lot of these teams. Right. 1 minute it's good,
right.
1 minute it's bad.
That's what we call the National Football League, Warren.
The only reason that Kansas City has been close in some of these games is their important offensive people have been injured. And then you got to remember, too, when the Vikings played the 49ers and teams like that, other teams have had some pretty massive injuries.
Okay,
and
Warren.
the 49ers, so that's the way I see the season shaking out.
Warren sees the season shaking out. Lions are lucky. Goff has not been playing well. Okay. Hey.
The argument that Detroit's only been there once.
Yeah.
Well, one, they got to the NFC Championship game. So they had some success in the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's not like they just first round and then they flopped.
That's correct.
And frankly, they should have taken down San Francisco. They had the 49ers on the ropes. 2, all the other teams that are at the top of the NFC right now would be in the same boat Warren's talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Like Washington has not gone through it. Atlanta has not gone through it. Frankly, this Minnesota team with Sam Darnold at the helm has not gone through it. I mean, with all the changes on defense.
Philadelphia, I guess, has.
Yeah.
For the most part, they have. That's about it.
Green Bay is kind of in the same boat Detroit is, except for Detroit got farther.
Look,
I guess the teams out west, San Francisco and LA, have been through it before.
I think San Francisco is probably going to end up being the representative in the
They
NFC
barely won yesterday.
I know, but I just feel like they'll find a way to do it. The headline...
I feel like this is one of those years where San Francisco is just not going to be there. Like Deebo Samuel's putting a chokehold on their long snapper yesterday.
Yeah. Was it the long snapper or the kicker? Was it the long snapper?
I thought it was the long snapper.
I couldn't remember. It was one or the other. The headline in the Fish Wrap Factory West Side, I'll never get over this. I can't. I'm never going to be able to let this go, and I probably should, because it does keep me up at night and it bothers me. Wild rallied for a 2-1 overtime loss. You can't rally for a loss. When you lose, you've lost. And I know in the NHL, they tied the game and then lost in overtime.
They rallied to salvage a point.
Yeah, that's the way it should have been.
They got a point out of it.
And I'll never, ever understand. I mean, I understand how it works, but I'll never understand the logic. We've been talking this year with the Wild. I'm not even suggesting they're surprising contributions, but I think most of us going into the season, especially novices like myself that are bandwagon, I thought this year would be similar to last year. It'd be, muddling through the year, have some winning streaks, have some losing streaks, fighting for that last playoff spot in the West or the second to the last, or however they seed it nowadays, and they would go quietly into the night. But are they 9?
They're 10, 2 and 3, I believe.
10, 2 and 3.
Yes, 10, 2 and 3.
Which is a mighty fine record.
Something like 10, 2 and 3.
Something like 10.
With something like 23 points.
I saw this today. Boldy, 4 game-winning goals. That leads the NHL. He leads the NHL in game-winning goals. A member of the Minnesota Wild leads the league in game-winning goals.
And he had the tying goal last night with 4 minutes and change to force that overtime.
His 9 goals is tied with Kirill
Kaprizov
for the team lead. And Kaprizov has 6 3-point games, which is the most in the NHL this year. And he's got 27 points. They're getting contributions.
Well, Kaprizov's streak ended last night.
Oh, did it?
He had 8 straight games on the road of multiple-point games, which was one shy of Wayne Gretzky for the all-time record.
But he
only got 1 point last night. He did assist on that Boldy goal.
But he does have 6 3-point games this season. And I think that's the most in the NHL. Did I see this right? By 3. So the next closest, somebody has 3 3-point games. He has 6 of them already. And he has 27 points on the season, which, does that lead the league?
I haven't checked in a couple days, but he was leading the league in points a couple days ago.
Is this, I guess we won't know the answer.
Nathan McKinnon for Colorado is 1 point ahead of him. Okay. So he's got 29 points. Kaprizov's got 28.
I know we can't answer this until the season goes on. Is it sustainable? I think I even asked you last week if it was sustainable. But, 10, 2 and 3, and just 15 games, 82-game season. I don't know how it's a fifth of the way through, a little more than that. Roughly, that's starting to become a bigger sample size all the time. So
they always say in the NHL, not necessarily from a player standpoint, but from a team standpoint, like the standings once you get to Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Like if you're in the top 8 in your conference, like generally that holds throughout the rest of the year. There's always going to be a change or two maybe, but that's always kind of the litmus test of where you are at Thanksgiving. That shows how legit you are. Like it's always even as for the Wild, right? We've been wondering, is this sustainable? Are they legit or not? And 2 weeks away from that Thanksgiving mark.
Speaking of Thanksgiving, did you see the slate of Thanksgiving Day games?
I have not looked, no.
Bears at Detroit.
Okay.
That, on paper, has the makings of a blowout. Game 2, how intriguing is this? New York Football Giants at Dallas.
Might as well just put that game in Europe.
I mean, that is just an awful matchup. And even the evening one...
Well, the Giants are now, at least today was the first day where Dable was asked about Daniel Jones' job security and basically said, we're going to look into some things. Yeah. Which that's never a good sign.
That's not.
That means you're donezo.
But, and then it's Dolphins at Packers.
Well, depending on which Dolphins team shows up.
But still, it's not the most appetizing, pardon the pun, a selection of games even for a Lions fan. Of course, again.
Well, usually the Lions game aren't great just because it's the Lions, but now it's the opposite. Yeah. It's their opponent.
Do you remember the old wives' tale? The people that always go, Lions usually play good on Thanksgiving, and they have like a losing record.
That's a Rosen take.
Yeah. The Lions usually play really good on Thanksgiving. No, they don't. I've watched most of the Lions Thanksgiving Day games. What the hell was I going to ask you? I had another nugget for you.
Well, we were talking wild, and then I brought up the Thanksgiving thing, and that
yeah, I know. Yeah, but that's
dovetailed into Thanksgiving football.
I still thought
your favorite Thanksgiving food. Is that where you want to go next?
No. I didn't want to go there. I wanted to go. Oh, here's what I wanted to go with. So, Zadarius Smith gets traded to the Kitties on Tuesday, and he doesn't play yesterday.
Yeah,
and it was some nonsense about need to give his body some rest or something of that nature. I didn't really completely understand why he wasn't in the lineup. You would think he's been playing all year. Wouldn't you, do you really need to know his system or you just say C quarterback, sack quarterback? I mean, isn't that kind of what an edge rusher does? Get on the edge, beat your man to the punch, and try to get to the quarterback. Is to me would be the all you'd have to know. But here's the other thing about Zadarius. Did you know how players when they get traded to a team and somebody else has got their number that they like? Yeah, no, there's that.
So embarrassing.
So it's like here's the story I found. About Zadarius. And it says, when the Lions obtained Smith in an NFL trade, the Greenville High School alumnus wanted to keep the number that he wore with the Cleveland Browns. A transaction with another Alabama prep product made that happen. Zadarius said, they was like, man, you got three options. You can get any number in the 70s, any number in the 80s, and I think it was like 60s. I was like, no way. I was like, who has number 99? And they told me who it was. We looked his number up, and I called him real quick. Thankful to him, a guy from Alabama, man. Tuscaloosa had a chance to talk to him for a little while, and I had to pay up a little bit, but all is well. I got number 99, so we paid for the number. And the defensive tackle is Broderick Martin. He was wearing number 99 for the Lions. Former Northridge High School standout is now number 96. After a financial transaction with Smith. Smith said, the going rate, well, there's 3 zeros on the end of it. I'm not going to tell you the exact price, but for sure, he's going to have some good money. Put some gas in the car for sure.
I would have guessed more than that.
Well, 3 zeros could be like $50,000.
Well, that's 4 zeros.
Oh, that's 4, yeah. It's only 3.
I suppose if it was 55,000, then there would be 3 zeros. I guess that makes sense. I guess I was thinking it was a four digit because it's 3 zeros.
I thought it meant it was 5 digits. That's what mine because I wouldn't sell it for anything less. I wouldn't sell it for anything less. If you said, well, I'll give you $8,000 for it, I go, no, thanks, man. How much money you got?
I'm just saying, if you say 3 zeros.
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. That's
going to be like 125,000 is 3 zeros.
Yeah.
2,000 is 3 zeros.
That's a good point.
But I'm guessing you're right that it's the double.
Well, it's got to be, doesn't it? Because it couldn't be like $1,000, or maybe it is. Maybe the backup tackles living check to check, and anything would be good for him.
Well, yeah, I didn't have to do anything, and I just get 3 zeros.
What would you sell me your moniker Tennessee for? Well,
it's got to be 3 zeros.
It's got to be 3 zeros. That's one of my I really didn't know what to do for liners for the Tennessee game coming up. So the last one I did was...
You already did them?
Yeah, I did them. Yeah, I told you. I got ahead of the game. I was here so early today. When I'm not golfing, you're going to start seeing more of me here. I'm going to bother you more than you've ever thought.
Oh, boy.
You think I've drained morale before?
Start working from home.
Just wait till we get dead into the winter. So the one I came up with is Tennessee, Tennessee. Find out how Tennessee got his name. It's fascinating. We'll talk about it tomorrow, noon to 3 on the Fan.
What about, yo, what up, Tennessee?
Yeah. So Yeah. Well, that's what I say. I say Tennessee, Tennessee, and then I go into you're fascinating because we know it's not fascinating. So I kind of did the Tennessee thing. I did the yo, what up, Tennessee. I mixed the two together, Tennessee and Tennessee. I've had a number of text messages come in. We're about to wrap up the show. We got about a minute to go. That there are people that are definitely concerned that the way Darnold's trending, they think this is probably going to be more of a trend than a mirage. I would say relax. The coach in his news conference today, I don't think he shied away from the topic. He did mention that, there's some things we can work on and this and that, clean some things up, as they always say. I don't know. Can you teach a dog new tricks? I don't know. It seems like in all of his stops, he's regressed as the season goes on. He seems to have done this a little bit so far this year. But
By the way, like KOC...
He can spin it.
KOC is like the gunslinger of coaches, by the way. Like, Darnold throws 3 interceptions, and he's still having Darnold just throw 25, 30-yard passes down the field. He should have had a 4th interception if not called back from penalty. And that was a bad throw as well.
Well, and then you know what Collinsworth brought up last night in regards to Goff? He was talking just in general, but, on a Hail Mary, there was an interception. And Collinsworth is going, I don't think that should count as an interception. It's a Hail Mary. And I get what he's saying. You still have to count it as a pick. But those ones, to me, aren't like, well, he made a terrible throw, what an awful decision. How many quarterbacks in their careers have said, end of the half, going to just heave down a Hail Mary or end of the game, and it gets picked off? So, yeah, it's technically 5. Certainly it is. But it was only 4 that really kind of hurt the club. So... but you're not going to just dismiss.
There's always context to it, right?
Well, yeah, there is context to it.
There's a pitcher that can have a bad ERA, but it's because his fielders can't get to balls that maybe they should be getting to.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Or, you throw interceptions, which your wide receiver just dropped.
This is correct.
But those same wide receivers can also make catches that maybe others can't, that make your completion percentage look good, too.
That is absolutely correct.
It goes both ways.
We're going to have the Gophers are on a bye. Generally, that means no PJ Fleck show. We did this at the other bye. We're going to have a PJ Fleck-less show. He will not be there, but apparently Grim and JG will still do a show, and they'll gather a bunch of Gopher players. They'll be at the Tipsy Steer tomorrow. You'll hear that live, noon until 1. And then Tennessee and I will start at 1 o'clock. And the legendary Mark Rosen will join us at 2 o'clock. Tennessee, thanks for having me.
Hey, great job.
You as well. We enjoyed our visit with you today. Stick around. Big Ticket and JG. They're next on The Fan.
Good night. Good morning. Good afternoon. And good night, Minnesota.
And good night, folks. And good night, Mrs. Calabash. Wherever you are.
Welcome back to the spotlight, young man.
Listen back to any of Common Man's programs by podcasting on the iHeartRadio app or KFAN.com.